Welcome to Cinema Bites, your go-to for movie recaps in a flash. Big twists, epic moments, all in just minutes. The movie begins in a chicken factory in Illinois. They were preparing a new shipment of nuggets, but one of the chickens contained a mysterious virus. This shipment was sent to a local elementary school, and that's where the problems began. The first victim was a little girl named Shelley, who ate some of the polluted nuggets. At the same time, we meet Clint, a novelist from New York. Clint had been trying to succeed in his writing career but had no luck. He returned to live with his mother in Fort Chick, and honestly, he wasn't convinced about his writing work and people kept saying his stories weren't good. Feeling stuck, he decided to apply for a job as a substitute teacher at the local elementary school. Clint arrives at the school and finds everything very strange. The first thing that happened was the security guard, Rick, accusing him of bringing drugs. Then, when parking his car, he finds the gym teacher Wade causing trouble and blocking his parking spot. After getting out of his car, Clint notices someone wrote inappropriate words on his window. The school was full of chaotic, disrespectful kids. In the principal's office, Clint meets Vice Principal Sims, who had a strange policy of banning phones for both teachers and students. Sims wanted the students to experience life before technology and encouraged them to play during recess instead of being on their phones. Clint meets Rebecca, one of the teachers dressed in a very eccentric way, and tries to interact with the other teachers, but it was clear they weren't normal. Clint, who didn't care about anyone else, searched for Lucy, one of the teachers he knew from back in the day. As he started talking to her, Wade, the gym teacher, interrupted, deciding to join the conversation. They began discussing Clint's book, which was about a man who buys a haunted ship, but Wade immediately dismissed the idea, saying it wasn't original and had been done before. Later, Lucy decided to walk Clint to his classroom. Clint took the opportunity to tell her bluntly that Wade was an idiot, but to his surprise, she laughed and revealed that Wade was her boyfriend. Clint entered his classroom and saw the chaos. Patriot and his friend Dink were mocking Shelley because of the spots that appeared on her face after eating the polluted nuggets. Clint tried to start the lesson and connect with the students, but Patriot began mocking him. Patriot was still holding his phone despite the school's rules. Clint tried to confront him, but Patriot threatened to accuse him of inappropriate behavior. Clint realized that Patriot was the one who wrote the insult on his car, but decided to ignore it. He tried to continue the lesson and had the students read parts of his story. But during this, Patriot started bothering Shelley again. Patriot pulled Shelley's braids, but suddenly, her skin came off in his hand. At that moment, Shelley fully transformed and attacked Patriot, biting his face. Clint tried to separate them, but got scratched by Shelley during the fight. Shelley ran away, and Clint quickly took Patriot to the nurse's office. Meanwhile, the security guard Rick finally got the hallucinogens he had been craving and ate them in his car. During recess, Clint went to the teacher's lounge and told Lucy what happened. At the same time, Dink confronted Shelley about what she did to Patriot, but Shelley attacked him too. Wade, who was watching Lucy and Clint talking excitedly on the basketball court, started to get suspicious. Rick saw an infected child eating one of the parents. Even though he was nearby, he didn't realize what was happening. Rick called Vice Principal Sims and told him what he saw, but since he was under the influence of drugs, his words were unclear. Sims went out to see what was going on, but as soon as he stepped outside, the infected kids attacked him. Patriot also started transforming and became like the monsters. Finally, Wade noticed what was happening, rushed into the school, and locked the doors to keep the infected kids out. Unfortunately, Patriot cut the phone lines to make things worse. The police finally arrived, but the sheriff, Dave, was bitten by one of the kids. Dave tried to escape in his car, but one of the infected kids was hiding inside and attacked him. Patriot suddenly attacked the group. Clint shielded Rebecca, who used pepper spray on Patriot, but he then attacked another teacher, forcing them to hide in a closet. The remaining teachers took advantage of the situation and escaped, with Wade leading them. While looking for a safe place to hide, they found the student Calvin, who, luckily, wasn't infected, so they took him with them. The group found a hiding spot, but Shelley was right behind them. Patriot, who was still transforming, helped the infected kids get into the school. Amid all the chaos, Calvin suddenly mentioned the disease Cooties, a childhood infection. At first, everyone laughed at him, but teacher Doug realized his words made sense and began examining Shelley's spots. Before he could do anything, Shelley ran off. Wade suggested they run out of the school and escape in their cars, but Clint refused, insisting they should go to the principal's office and call for help. At the same time, Patriot was destroying all the phones in the office. Lucy suggested they wait until 3 p.m. when the parents come to pick up their kids, then climb to the roof and call for help. Suddenly, Lucy noticed the scratch on Clint from Shelley. Wade, suspecting Clint might be infected, locked him in the isolation room. Doug entered the isolation room with Clint to examine him and discovered that Clint was indeed infected, but the virus affected him differently than the kids. Clint began experiencing flu-like symptoms, but Doug reassured everyone. He said there is no danger of it turning violent at the moment. Time passed, and at 3 o'clock, the teachers arrived and went up to the roof to seek help. At that moment, a mother arrived in her car, and they tried to get her attention to ask for help, but she was too busy with her phone, unaware of what was happening around her. The disaster was that her son, Rasir, got into the car and started eating his baby brother. After a while, he went to his mother and attacked her. At the same time, Tracy was kidnapped by one of the children named Tamra, but the surprise was that she wasn't infected. When the other children saw them, the whole group decided to quickly run back inside the gym. In the gym, Denick grabbed Doug and restrained him, but Woody acted quickly, grabbed a fire extinguisher, and hit Denick with it until he died. The situation was horrific, but Woody had no other choice. At the same time, Lucy tried to reassure the children, telling them everything would be fine as long as no one got bitten or scratched. But Tamra suddenly discovered a scratch on her back. She decided to isolate herself and went to the bathroom. After what happened, Doug decided to cut himself open and examine his body to understand the virus better. Meanwhile, Rick was still hiding in his car under the influence of the fungus he had eaten, unaware of the catastrophe around him. In the midst of all this, a confrontation arose due to his obvious jealousy of Ouida. He admitted he was planning to propose to her, but hesitated when he saw her smiling with Clint. After a while, Doug finished his analysis and shared the results with the group. He discovered that the virus causes children to decompose gradually, but strangely, they are still able to move and attack, which means, simply, they are no longer human. But Lucy noticed something important. Clint and Tamra hadn't turned, even though they were scratched. Here, Dougie proposed a new theory, saying the virus only affects children. Suddenly, the lights went out completely, and it turned out that Patriot was working on cutting the electricity. They started checking on Calvin, who was sleeping in the corner, and discovered that Calvin had diabetes and needed something sugary quickly to avoid getting sick. They began hearing noises from behind the walls, and everyone was terrified. In a moment of tension, the door suddenly opened, but it turned out to be the janitor, Mr. Hitachi. Lucy declared to Wade that she wouldn't marry him, but then the infected children stormed the place and followed Hitachi into the gym room. For Lucy, the most important thing now was to secure food for Calvin, but Mr. Hitachi didn't have anything sugary with him. Suddenly, the emergency broadcast on the radio announced that people must evacuate the city, and there was no chance for anyone to come to their rescue. Hope was slowly fading, but Clint decided to stand up and move with a plan. He said they would use the pipes to move from place to place. The first task was to get something for Calvin from the vending machine. Then, they would get the car keys from the teacher's room. Since Clint was the smallest physically, everyone agreed he would execute the plan. Before moving, he handed his bag to Tracy, and Tamra decided to give him an injection as a form of protection. Clint began moving through the pipes while everyone followed him via the walkie-talkie. But instead of encouraging him, they started arguing with him and blaming him for the problems. The pressure on Clint increased as the sound of the infected children around the pipes grew louder. In a moment of anger, Lucy couldn't take it anymore. She yelled at everyone, telling them to stop arguing and joking around and to focus on survival. After calming down a bit, she decided to join Clint in the pipes. Clint and Lucy finally reached the teacher's room. Clint focused on the vending machine to get something sugary for Calvin, while Lucy quickly grabbed the car keys and decided to go to the office to try to call for help. But unfortunately, she couldn't reach anyone. Clint kept trying to insert money into the vending machine, but as usual, it was stubborn, and the money wouldn't go in. Suddenly, an infected child entered the room with a bicycle. Clint quickly hid next to the machine, but the machine suddenly started working. The noise attracted the infected child, who began screaming, which alerted Patriot. He started running towards Clint. Clint, still in disbelief at what was happening, decided he wouldn't leave without taking the snack. But he was forced to escape through the pipes as things spiraled out of control. Lucy and Clint began crawling quickly to escape, but Patriot was chasing them. Clint threw the snack towards the group so they could give it to Calvin and decided to take a different path. Lucy and Clint reached another room and managed to trap the infected children inside the pipes. But the children began changing their direction towards the group. Clint quickly informed them to prepare. The group managed to create a barrier and lock themselves in a room. But Tracy began to break down and scream, thinking they were trapped forever. While Clint and Lucy were trapped alone, they started having a serious conversation for the first time. Clint admitted that he returned to Illinois because he wanted to see Lucy. He also confessed that he wasn't actually a writer, as everyone thought, but a first-grade teacher in New York. Clint suddenly had a brilliant idea to save the situation. While Clint and Lucy were trying to execute their plan, the rest of the teachers sat talking about their dreams and goals in life. Suddenly, Lucy contacted the group via the walkie-talkie. Wade responded to her. At that moment, Wade apologized for his behavior and admitted he was jealous of Clint because he was a famous writer from New York, while he was just a physical education teacher. But Clint surprised him by admitting he wasn't as successful as they thought, and that he was willing to support Lucy's relationship. Clint explained his plan to the group via the walkie-talkie, but he didn't know that the radio signals were reaching two other places, Rick's truck and a location very close to Patriot. After a while, the group gathered in the main hallway to try to run quickly towards the truck. At first, things were going smoothly, but suddenly the infected children started attacking them one by one. With his usual courage, Wade began hitting them with a baseball bat. When the group reached the truck, Mr. Hitachi decided to stay behind to face the infected children approaching. At that moment, the group was trying to hold off the infected children outside the truck, but Wade made the decision to sacrifice himself to protect the others. Before he died, he threw the keys, but the group refused to leave him behind. Firmly, he told them there was no way to save him. The entire group watched as Wade was overwhelmed by the infected children. They had no choice but to flee the scene. While on the road, no one noticed that Patriot was hiding under the truck. When they realized, they ran out of gas. Patriot was about to finish when he was attacked through the window. Clint, in a bold move, slammed the brakes suddenly and threw Patriot out without hesitation. Clint returned to the truck and ran over Patriot. After continuing their journey, they reached a nearby town called Danville. However, it turned out to be completely abandoned and filled with signs of destruction. The group ran out of fuel and had to get out of the vehicle and enter a nearby electronics store. Inside the store, they saw news on the dusty television covering the spread of the virus across the country. The reports confirmed that the virus originated from the Fort Chicken factory due to a shipment of polluted nuggets. For those who hoped to create a cure for the virus, it was said they needed pieces of the nuggets to begin experiments. The group identified the nearest place to hide, which was an indoor children's playground. When they entered, they saw an abandoned birthday party, and it was clear that the infected children had eaten there. They managed to quickly grab a piece of the nuggets, but the infected children cornered them, leaving them in a desperate situation. At the last moment, Mr. Hitachi and Wade appeared suddenly and began fending off the infected children. They urged the group to run to the van waiting for them outside. Wade used a strange-looking machine gun to hold off the children, and the whole group quickly escaped to the van, which was being driven by Rick, who was still under the influence of the drugs and unaware of the true catastrophe. Wade noticed that the fuel he was using wasn't ordinary. He realized it was gasoline. At the right moment, Wade used a lighter to ignite the entire indoor playground, trapping the infected children inside as the fire blazed. If you liked this summary, don't forget to support us with a like,